Game of Thrones, Season 1, Episode 3, entitled Jon Snow. Let's get going with the review. So, basically, like I was saying, in the last episode, we saw Ned Stark and his two daughters travelling down the King's Road, and at the very start of this episode, we pick up right where we left off. They reached King's Landing, and the biggest taking point, the biggest thing to take away from this episode is the introduction of new characters. There's a lot of new characters. Most importantly, Littlefinger, one of my absolute favourite characters. He's great. He's going to be such a big player in future episodes. Varys, who's another major player. Most of these are big players. You know, Varys, who's also great. Grandmaster Pycelle, who's such a cockroach of a character. Renly, poor Renly. Who else? Yeah. Also, Samuel Tarly, Barristan Selby. Just a bunch of new characters get introduced in this episode. Pretty much anyone who is, at least for the next good few seasons, exclusive to King's Landing, you meet them in this episode. And they're all great. Especially Baelish. He just hits the ground running as this kind of slimy, but you don't know whose side he's really on. Like at the start, as we see him now in this episode, he has that air of you shouldn't trust him, but he seems to be on Ned's side. But that's probably just because he fancies Ned's wife, who ends up in King's Landing in this episode. She travels down after the attack on Bran, and it's discovered that the dagger belonged to Littlefinger, but he lost it in a bet to Tyrion, who is still at the Wall with Jon Snow, and you have this great scene in which Tyrion is meeting with all the sort of older leaders of the Night's Watch, and they're just telling Tyrion about how deteriorating the condition of the Night's Watch, is. Like, it's not the force that it once was. The guys in it are pretty much just criminals and lowborns and people who are either told lose a hand or join the Watch, and they just need money because the White Walkers, while no one wants to believe they're back, some people are starting to maybe think that they are, which is true. What else? Arya, another character introduced, Syrio Forel, at the very end of the episode. Arya's dance instructor, which is basically just a term for fancy swordsman. And like I said in the first episode, there's so many things in these early episodes that not until going back and watching it after seeing all the other seasons, you realise, fuck, was that was a hint that you didn't see the first time, especially with Syrio being from Bravos, and we know later on Arya spends a lot of time in Bravos, and it's a big part of who she eventually becomes as a character. So the fact that she was introduced to not only this Bravosi man, but also the Bravos way of fighting, all the way back in season 1, that's a big character sort of moment showing that where she's going to go. What else? You see Jon Snow trying to fit in at the Wall, and at this point, when I first watched Game of Thrones, it took me at least until season 5 to really start to warm up to Jon Snow as a character, but that's probably because I was just so focused on characters like Tyrion and Arya and Littlefinger, who at the time were more interesting. But with Jon Snow, it's a slow burn from, bland bastard to what he is now, this reluctant king in the north, badass hero. And it's episodes like this, and this entire season pretty much with Jon Snow is kind of slow when you first think about it, but when you think about it as him becoming part of the Night's Watch, which, he's going to be there for most of his time on the show, by season 6 and 7, he is predominantly Night's Watch. And to see his early days in the Night's Watch is interesting now, knowing where he goes in the future. And in this episode, he has a chip on his shoulder, and it's really nice to see that chip being scratched away or cracked away. That's the right way to say it. But I'm liking Jon Snow as a character in this season more now, watching it back, than originally. What else? The stuff on Essos with Daenerys, again, like I said, it's a bit hit and miss this season. I do love the Dothraki, though. The Dothraki are awesome. And there's this great moment where she gives orders to the whole Khazar, and Viserys just gets so triggered. It's like watching a Trump fan get triggered. He just don't be giving me orders, and just immediately he starts calling her a Dothraki slut, which is such a nice thing to call your fucking little sister, isn't it, guys? Just such a good brother he is. But, and just immediately just gets this fucking rope yanked around his throat. Oh, he's one of those characters that it's really nice to see bad things happen to him. I disliked him the first time I watched it, but watching him back now, I really just hate this guy. Another character that I kind of feel the same way, but who will be around longer, is Thorne. In the Night's Watch. I can kind of understand his character in this. He's been with the Night's Watch for probably a very, very long time. He's just a grumpy, angry old arsehole of an old man. But I don't think he gets enough character development during his time on the show to be anything more than just kind of the one-dimensional bully of the Night's Watch. His main character trait is that mean guy who would probably yell gay slurs if there was a gay guy in the Night's Watch. He just isn't that much of a character. For me, I don't think he's that much of a character outside of just being a grumpy arsehole for Jon Snow to have conflict within the Night's Watch. Overall, I keep forgetting these scenes. It's I really do need to start having fucking clip notes to what to go on to, because I do know that these videos are starting to be a bit scattered in what I'm saying. I will have clip notes next time, I promise. Well, I think one of the most interesting scenes in the whole episode is the scene between Cersei and Joffrey, in which we really get a sense of how Joffrey is not the type of person who would be a good leader, because he's just throwing out all these ideas that just would not work, like a king's army, and overthrowing the North and just implementing an outsider as warden of the North. And Cersei's not the political genius that she thinks she is, but she like schools him on this and just shows him the illogic in his stupidity. But that's not the type of thing that shows you are a really strong political mind. It just shows that you're not an idiot and that you actually know how the northern people are. So it's like, she isn't even that smart, it's just Joffrey is that dumb. But it's beyond that, it just shows one of the few redeeming elements to Joffrey, and that is, obviously he's not right in the head whatsoever. That's kind of, the reasoning behind that is revealed later, and it is kind of the same thing that sort of Viserion has, but it's not as interesting. Viserys, sorry. But it's not as interesting as Joffrey, because Joffrey is a spoiled mother's boy who's never been told no in his life, but he now has power. So it's like he's powerful, psycho, spoiled brat who didn't really have a great father figure. So it's like he's almost sympathetic. Almost. But I just think it's really interesting to see how Cersei, at this point, is controlling him, is keeping him in line for now, but that's because Joffrey doesn't have the power that he is going to have down the line. So it will be fun to see that dynamic change. Another dynamic that is really interesting right now is Jaime and Cersei's relationship. When you look at it in this episode, when Jaime just can't keep his hands off her, and he seems to be the one in control and calm about that whole relationship, and I think that goes to show both characters' progressions, not just the progression of their relationship, but the character arcs that they both go on. Jaime, from the cocky asshole that he is in this season, to like the more mature version of that same cocky asshole that we see now at the end of season 7. Like the last time we see in season 7, we see Jaime and Cersei together. Cersei is trying to keep him with her, and it feels like the whole scene of sort of Jaime grabbing her and not being able to keep his hands off her, and just being like, I'll kill anyone if it means we're just the only two people left in the world. Come season 7, the roles in that scene will be completely reversed, and it's a testament to the writing and the acting work done by both actors that it has that powerful resonance all these years later when it's reversed, and it's just great. It's fucking brilliant. I love it. Oh, I love this show. So yeah, other than that, this is another very strong episode that keeps building these multiple mysteries within, and then you have all the other side stuff, like Jon starting in the Night's Watch, and Daenerys learning how to take a bit of control in the Khalasar as Khaleesi. So you're seeing, while all this political scheming is going on and all these mysteries about who did what, like, did the Lannisters kill Jon Arryn, did the Lannisters try and kill Bran, all these mysteries mixing in with the political unrest and Ned trying to be a good hand to the king while also trying to be a good father and figuring out what happened to Jon Arryn and all this other stuff. You have that mixed together, and then what I love is the two of the biggest characters in the entire show, Jon Snow and Daenerys, at the same time their story is beginning and they are beginning to rise as characters in their own right. So that eventually, when the story starts to reach the end, as opposed to where it is now at the start, they are firm, solid characters, and everything else is in the past. So while everything else is going on, the future of the series is building and building and building, and nothing is filler. So overall, another great episode. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Mainly because I would have liked the scene involving Robert, Barristan Selmy, and Jaime, who are basically, they're just talking about their first time, the first time they killed anyone, which feels like it. While that feels like the most filler-ish bit, it comes back seasons later, in Jaime's response to the question, what did the Mad King say when you stabbed him in the back? Which again links to the really fucking tense conversation that Jaime Lannister had with Ned Stark earlier in the episode, in the throne room, where you can tell neither of those guys like each other they can't stand each other. But you can tell Ned is just despises Jaime Lannister, but then you find out again later on, it wasn't so black and white, that situation that Jaime was in, killing the Mad King. He had to do it. And that's his cross to bear. He'll be judged for the rest of his days by people like Ned Stark. So yeah, so it is just narrative perfection at times with this show, just making sure that even the most filler-esque scenes can have narrative resonance, not even in this season, or maybe seasons to come. That's just awesome. So yeah, 8 out of 10. I really like this episode. I'd like to thank my subscribers, the people who watch these videos. I know, obviously, if you've never seen Game of Thrones, you can't watch these, but just anyone who subscribes, anyone who watches my videos, I know I've got only 14 subscribers, and it's been 2 years. Maybe by the time I get a grandkid, I'll have 1,000 subscribers. That's the goal in my lifetime, 1,000 subscribers. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Still, I like doing these videos, and I just like when anyone takes any time out of their day to watch these, It is gratifying. Even if it's just one person. Sometimes it is only one fucking person. I think my part 2 for the Winter is Coming has 3 views. Yeah, so I'm not getting many viewers. I've never had a shit ton of viewers. The most I ever had was 119, which I think that's amazing, to be honest. I think that's amazing. But in the grand scheme, it's not a lot of people. But I'd like to thank the people who do watch. I make these videos for you, and I love doing them, and I hope to do them into the future, when maybe even I have better equipment, like a better tripod, lighting that doesn't look like the 7 rings of hell when I close the curtains. But yeah, so other than that, thank you. I hope to get more content up soon, and I will see you soon. Bye. Where's that button?